Hello everyone and welcome back to our Lost Eidolons playthrough. Today is just going to be a Codex episode, so yeah. Starting with Abramo. Oh, he's blinked up quick. The last surviving survivor of House Orsio and heir to the throne of Benerio, Abramo spent many years living in hiding after his entire bloodline was extinguished during the unification. Initially reluctant to aid the rebel cause, Abramo eventually came to accept his role as king, though his reasons remain shrouded. Whoops, my bad. Next up is Colas, not including okay then. Colas, a quiet farming town at the foot of Mount Colero. Local folklore tells of a witch named Nanakoko who lives inside the mountain, emerging on the last full moon of every year to devour naughty children. Caspar, general in the Imperial Army, recently appointed High Commander. Infamously skillful as both a warrior and a leader, Caspar is the last living commander who personally fought alongside Emperor Ludovictus during the unification and was considered the aspiring conqueror's secret weapon. Eris, one of Caspar's generals, Eris is as elegant as she is ruthless. A skilled mage trained in the arcane arts, she dispatches her enemies with competence, ease, and satisfaction. Fontaine, one of Caspar's generals. Fontaine is a man of war and takes his position very seriously, both on and off the battlefield. Despite his fearsome reputation, he is known for clever strategies and shocking ambushes. Rebel ranks. In the army of Benerio, command structure is an area of constant innovation, synthesizing elements from many other factions. From the Empire, it borrows its overall hierarchy, as well as specific titles like High Commander. From the Crows, it borrows a spirit of flexibility and merit-driven advancement. Below the officer ranks, there is little formal structure. Unit commanders delegate as they see fit, roles change often, and individuals who excel ascend quickly. As a result, the Benerian army excels at adaptation and improvisation, while maintaining discipline and cultivating leadership. This is the result of careful planning by Isoro based on his experiences during the War of Unification. Gabriel. Though magic has a reputation of being dangerous and volatile, a young fellow like Gabriel welcomes the risk and peril with open arms. As a precocious young child growing up in an orphanage run by elderly sisters of the Aristan faith, Gabriel was always fascinated by the hushed stories of wizards and magic, and outraged by the injustices of the Empire against them. Once old enough to work, Gabriel secured a blacksmith apprenticeship. When he had saved enough money, he set out across Artemesia on a pilgrimage of knowledge. Though he lacks formal magical education, he has ample practical experience on the battlefield. He aims to become the greatest spellcaster in history and bring justice to the enemies of magic and knowledge. House Vipont. With a Viper sigil and not much else, House Vipont is a house in name only and has no members save for General Caspar. Nonetheless, it wields tremendous power over the peoples of Artemesia. Looks like everyone has the Viper sigil behind them. Though he was instrumental to the unification and subsequent command of the Imperial forces, little is known about Caspar's early years. All that is known for certain is that Caspar was born a commoner in Le Royale, earned his fortune with the blood of others, and is the last living commander who actually fought alongside Emperor Ludovictus. Recent months, Caspar was appointed High Commander of the Imperial Army following the execution of his predecessor, Gustave Cerasus, for unnamed treason. Merton. Always a welcome presence in camp, Merton is a man of high spirits and good humor. Nonetheless, he remains a lethal archer in combat, ready to unleash death at any moment. The blind mystic Levant. An airy and mystically minded individual, Levana believes strongly in fate and that she has an important role to play in the warp and weft of history. Born with low vision, her studies of the arcane arts required years of patient self-directed labor, as well as extensive modification to her grimoires to allow for touch reading. As a result, she has a vast and comprehensive knowledge of magic that makes her a wise advisor and a fearsome foe. It said that before every battle, she applies a smoky eyeshadow of her own concoction with tremendous ritual. Johanna. Oh, we finally got her intel. More knight than anything, it seems. Quiet mercenary who was a close associate of Clara's and acts as her chief strategist. According to Clara, Johanna was once a gregarious grain merchant, so rumors of an affair with her sister's husband caught fire in her hometown. Her reputation destroyed by scandal, Johanna left her home and joined a mercenary company, becoming guarded and suspicious toward people. Yet, in a strange twist of fate, these very qualities made her into a cunning tactician, able to weigh and risk the lives of others with shrewd logic and calm dispassion. As Clara's reputation grew, The two soon gravitated toward one another and fell into an equitable business partnership. Since joining Eden's camp, their dynamic has remained largely the same, with Clara setting the destination while Johanna plots the route. Yet to everyone's surprise, including her own, Johanna has begun to socialize and grow close to her peers in camp, a bit of her old self re-emerging among new friends. Though she may not be as outspoken as his other advisors, Eden relies on Johanna's input in times of need, though we haven't seen her at all. House Seagwolf. Though the emblem of House Seagwolf is a wolf, it might just as easily be a steer. The youngest of the great houses, the Seagwolfs were once a family of cattle barons who ruled the open plains and secured their status as kingdom royalty through a series of strategic and costly land grabs. Unfortunately, they did so only one generation before the unification. After House Zerpiel ravaged their lands and annexed much of their holdings, House Seagwolf was left drowning in debt and mired in resentment. While the family lacks the strength to oppose the empire on their own, it's rumored that they keep secret storehouses for surplus crops, a precious resource that would go a long way toward provisioning a rebel army. House Orsio. The late royal family of the former kingdom of Benario, now an imperial province. Growing from a clan of bearskin-clad berserkers to one of the mightiest houses on Artemesia, the story of the Orsio family's ascent is the history of Benario itself, and their downfall its conquest. For centuries, the Orsios reigned fairly and benevolently with the aid of their allies House Fenice. Though not as widely beloved, they were by no means disliked, and among enemies their name was feared and respected. From the former fortress city of Castilian, House Orsio protected the borders, while House Fenice kept the peace at home, and the common people prospered. Tragically, during the conquest of House Zerpiel, the entire Orsio family was infamously massacred in a single night. Memories of that incident have etched lasting resentment in the hearts of Benario's people. In that sense, the spirit of House Orsio lives on, a slumbering rage, awaiting the right season to reawaken. Clara, one of the most famous mercenaries on Artemesia, and the most expensive. Abandoned at birth, Clara was raised in an Aristan temple. When Ludovicus rose to power, the faith was outlawed and the temple destroyed. Clara soon found her way to the back alleys of Leroy Hour, where she was picked up by a mercenary guild. Having experienced firsthand what it meant to be at the mercy of those with money and power, she swore to accrue as much of both as she could and never be powerless again. Before long, she'd established herself as an incredibly skilled fighter, willing to take on the sorts of high-risk jobs and morally gray clientele that local mercs like Eden tend to avoid. Strangely enough, Clara's services cost an arm and a leg, and her company has reportedly never failed a client, she doesn't seem to have much wealth to show for it. Rumor has it that she invests the majority of her earnings in rare manuscripts, particularly primers on tactics and strategy, in order to take on more complex assignments with even greater payouts. If true, it would seem her plans are nearing fruition. As a newly anointed rebel commander, Clara has pledged her allegiance to Osoro and now fights for the prize of a lifetime. A chance to shape her future how she sees fit. Imperial education. In years past, schooling was reserved for nobles and the very wealthy. After the unification, a number of surprisingly progressive reforms were implemented across Artemesia by the newly crowned emperor Ludovicus, who proclaimed there would be education for all. For a time, that appeared to be true. Over the objections of the upper classes, a new alphabet was developed designed for ease of teaching, and schoolhouses were built in most towns and cities. Universal literacy took root practically overnight, leading to a renaissance of written correspondence and journal keeping. As one lord famously complained, "Everywhere I turn, I find some farmers' innermost thoughts on the ground." Unfortunately, such developments soon withered when the written word emerged as a tool for sowing rebellion. Today, schoolhouses grow over with weeds, and literacy among commoners is strongly discouraged. But some gifts are hard to take back. House Bayardine. Prior to the unification, the kingdom of Florient was rich and prosperous, and House Bayardine was the wealthiest royal family in Artemesia. With a massive population and sizable taxes on imports, the Bayardines ruled with their purse strings and lived in relative opulence, even as neighboring kingdoms starved. House Bayardine's wealth and infrastructure would later form the bedrock of the empire following the imperial unification. Greedy tax collectors became corrupt local officials. Florient's capital city fell under permanent occupation, and its once influential royal family was reduced to little more than a front for imperial rule. Today, the members of House Bayardine have very little meaningful influence. Their role is chiefly ceremonial, while Florient's prime minister governs the province on House Zerpiel's behalf. Man, my speaking's bad right now. Artemesian cuisine. With varying cultures and climates, it is only natural that the cuisines of Artemisia are just as diverse. While staples like poultry and grain are common across the continent, each region has their own unique palate, from the seafood stews of Panerio to the seasoned red meats of Lamprecht. Since the unification, trade routes have dramatically improved. For the wealthy, this has resulted in easier access to regional ingredients and exotic foreign cuisine. Nonetheless, numerous wars have resulted in widespread food shortages for the poor. In recent years, most culinary innovation among common people has been a matter of necessity rather than taste. Dane. Little is known about Dane, not because his life is shrouded in secrecy, but rather because there's simply so little of note about him. Born in the village of Brenz and raised by a loving family of modestly wealthy cheesemakers, his childhood was never marred with any trauma or turmoil. In fact, it appeared that his family was almost entirely unaffected by the turmoil of the unification altogether. Nonetheless, Dane does possess an extraordinarily large heart, though not particularly, though not particularly a particularly skilled medic. Typo there. He recently set out across Artemesia, volunteering his services to the sick and needy wherever his feet carried him. Forced to confront the true scope of the world's suffering, he soon resolved to eliminate that suffering at its source, and enlisted with the rebels to bring down the empire. Agriculture. Though the various regions of Artemisia have had steady food sources for centuries, the unification has greatly disrupted the farming economy. With the implementation of secure trade routes has come the rise of imports and centralization of food production. Today, most food is exported from Lamprecht province, while farms elsewhere struggle to survive. As a result, there's been a general shift among common people everywhere from farming to trade crafts as the primary occupation. Nonetheless, with high taxes on all goods, many poorer people fend as they always have by hunting and foraging, skills that have proven useful among the ranks of the Benarian army. Finally, Cristobal, the adoptive uncle, quote-unquote, of Abramo Orsio, Cristobal hails from House Cuello, a line of stewards that have served the royal family, House Orsio, for generations. Though he appears to be a bumbling oafish noble, he may be more clever than he lets on. House Cuello. It has often been said that in Benario's golden days, the bears held the border, the phoenixes kept the peace, and the rabbits did all. Sorry, I have relatives over and someone's a little sick. Sorry for the background noise. It is the holidays after all. Loyal servants since ancient times, House Cuello served as the stewards of House Orsio's domains, handling everything from tax collection to trade negotiations. By far their most sacred duty was the tutelage of Orsio family offspring in matters like diplomacy, finance, and local administration. Upon their 15th birthday, it was customary for every Orsio heir to spend 1 year working in a common village as the ward of a local Cuello official to learn firsthand how a kingdom was run. Tragically, the Cuellos were destroyed in the same massacre that claimed the Orsios. Today, few members of the family remain alive, though it's rumored a handful may be living under false names. But with their fortunes tied to the former royal family, most Benarians consider it highly unlikely that House Cuello will ever return to its former status, unless House Orsio should somehow return from the dead. So yeah. Improvements with Andrea, Marshall, and Francisco. Very close with Robert. And less so with Leonard. Yeah, Dane. Alright, well, this has been a very quick Codex reading episode. But I'm going to end it here. And if not next episode, then the episode after will be fairly long as usual. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'll see you all in the next one.